They didn't crown him emperor, he crowned himself. And in that moment, Europe understood something too late. This was no longer a man asking for power. This was power deciding it no longer needed permission. Napoleon Bonaparte did not rise quietly. He rose through war, speed, and fear. While others debated, he moved. While nations hesitated, he advanced. Victory after victory convinced him of something dangerous. That history obeyed force. Armies followed him without question. Crowds cheered his name as cities fell behind him. He didn't see borders. He saw obstacles. He didn't see enemies. He saw delays. Each battle reinforced the same belief. That will was stronger than law. That momentum was stronger than tradition. That Europe could be organized by one mind. Napoleon didn't want to rule nations. He wanted to replace them, and once he believed that, there was no turning back. Napoleon moved faster than resistance. While others argued legitimacy, he acted. Decisions were made before opposition could form. Armies moved before treaties were discussed. By the time Europe reacted, the outcome was already decided. Speed became his greatest weapon. It created confusion, and confusion created submission. Napoleon understood something most rulers did not. People obey momentum more easily than authority, and once momentum stopped being questioned, it became law. Napoleon never waited for approval. He moved before permission existed. While governments debated legitimacy, he advanced. Armies crossed borders before treaties could be written. Resistance was always late. By the time it organized, the outcome was already decided. Napoleon understood that hesitation was more dangerous than error. Speed was not just an advantage, it was a weapon. Movement created confusion. Confusion created fear, and fear collapsed opposition before it could form. His enemies tried to predict him. That was their mistake. Napoleon did not follow patterns. He created them. War was not his final option. It was his opening move. Each campaign reinforced the same lesson. Those who waited lost. Those who reacted were already defeated. In Napoleon's world, power belonged to whoever acted first. And once he proved that principle on the battlefield, he applied it to Europe itself. Speed changed the rules of obedience. At first, people followed Napoleon because he won. Then they followed him because everyone else did. Momentum replaced authority. Decisions were no longer discussed. They were expected. Generals stopped questioning orders. Ministers stopped offering alternatives. Even allies adjusted themselves to anticipate his will. The faster he moved, the less space remained for doubt. Doubt became dangerous. Silence became survival. Success created a system where hesitation felt unnecessary. Everything appeared stable, organized, controlled. But the structure depended on one thing only: continuous momentum. And momentum, once slowed, would expose every hidden weakness at once. As Napoleon's power expanded, control stopped feeling deliberate and began to feel natural. What had once required constant decisions now moved automatically, without resistance. Orders traveled upward and inward, concentrating around a single center, while independence quietly disappeared from the system. Generals still commanded armies, but no longer interpreted strategy. Ministers still governed, but no longer influenced direction. Success rewarded obedience, not initiative. Loyalty became careful rather than committed. Over time, something subtle but dangerous took shape. Decisions were executed efficiently, yet rarely questioned. Not because people agreed, but because nothing appeared to be failing. Victories continued. Borders shifted. Stability seemed permanent. But beneath the surface, correction was vanishing. And a system without correction does not collapse suddenly. It continues working until it no longer can. As control solidified, fear became more efficient than force. It required no announcements, no visible punishments, no constant enforcement. People began to calculate their actions before taking them, adjusting behavior not to succeed, but to avoid consequences they could not predict. Loyalty slowly transformed into caution. Initiative became risky. Silence became protection. Napoleon did not need to demand obedience. Fear delivered it naturally. Officials learned that mistakes were remembered longer than victories, and that discretion mattered more than competence. The system did not weaken under fear. It appeared stronger, cleaner, more disciplined. But fear does not eliminate error. It only delays its visibility. And when judgment retreats, decisions stop improving. Even as power continues to grow, every system built on momentum eventually demands a test. For Napoleon, that test was Russia. It was not a reckless decision. It was a logical one. He believed that force, once proven everywhere else, would work again. That speed would compensate for distance. That discipline would overcome environment. The invasion was planned with confidence, not doubt. Armies marched expecting resolution, not resistance. But Russia did not respond like Europe. It retreated. It absorbed pressure. It refused to conclude the conflict. Momentum slowed. Supply lines stretched. Control weakened quietly. For the first time, Napoleon could not force an outcome. And when momentum disappeared, the system he built had nothing to replace it. Collapse did not arrive through a single defeat or a dramatic confrontation. It arrived quietly, unfolding over time, as certainty began to dissolve. Armies returned, diminished, not destroyed, but changed. Allies hesitated where they once followed, without question. Confidence weakened, not suddenly, but consistently. The system that had depended entirely on momentum struggled to function in delay. Orders still existed, but their urgency faded. Fear, once efficient, began to isolate rather than unify. Silence no longer produced clarity. It produced distance. For the first time, Napoleon faced a situation that could not be resolved by movement alone. And in that stillness, the limits of control became visible. What had once felt inevitable now felt fragile. Collapse did not require chaos or rebellion. It required time. As pressure mounted, isolation followed naturally, not because Napoleon lacked people around him, but because fewer understood the reality unfolding beyond his reach. He remained surrounded by command, by structure, by protocol, yet increasingly distant from the conditions those commands were meant to control. Advisors continued to speak, but fewer voices carried weight. Experience was replaced by loyalty. Agreement became more valuable than accuracy. Decisions were made from memory rather than observation, based on what had worked before, not on what was changing now. The distance between intention and outcome widened slowly, almost invisibly. Control remained centralized, but awareness did not. Isolation does not announce itself as weakness. It feels like clarity, confidence, certainty. Until consequences arrive without warning and decisions meet realities they no longer understand. Napoleon did not lose power in a single moment. It left him gradually as systems stopped responding the way they once had. The structure he built survived longer than his certainty, but not longer than his presence. What remained was order without direction, obedience without conviction, and memory without momentum. History often remembers ambition. It rarely remembers the cost of believing that one mind can replace an entire continent. Belisarius obeyed power. Talleyrand survived power. Napoleon tried to become power itself. And power, when absorbed completely, does not collapse loudly. It simply stops working, leaving behind systems that cannot adapt, decisions that cannot be corrected, and silence where momentum once ruled.